Is Widowmaker unfixable? In her current state, she probably is. So let's rework her a little bit. Okay, so as normal with this series, I'm just going to be going through a character's kit and potential changes I would make, do a full rework. Widow is one of those characters that is very frustrating. She's very simple in her design, but just the idea and the identity behind her has shifted away from what Overwatch is being played or how it's being played nowadays. A lot more of the newer hero designs are much more involved, and they have a lot of like mindfulness of one shots and everything. And Widow is just still here, still very like a legacy character. So basically, I wanted to fix her a little bit. Before I start, of course, as always, I don't care about specific numbers. We're just gonna go ahead and say, like it's a medium cooldown, or it's like a slow, or it's a couple more seconds or something like that, a little more. We're going to work in those ranges and not like exact numbers. I don't want to get caught up in the semantics of things. I really just want this to be generalization, get the idea, the big picture. And of course, I'm going to pretend like anything's possible. Engine changes, time, money, resources, anything like that. We're just going to pretend that we have infinite anything, and Blizzard would theoretically do these. I don't actually know how the engine works, so there may be some things that don't work quite as well as I think they may in my head. But this is a creative exercise, so we'll just go ahead and assume anything is possible. So, let's go ahead and get to Widowmaker, right? So, I've been very vocal about Widow recently. In fact, I just played a game against a Widow and they swapped. I cheered because it's just, I hate playing against this character. So, it's not unique to despise this character because she is the poster child of one-shots. In fact, she's basically the only character in this game who still has hers, except for like Roadhog, kind of. I used to be a one-shot defender when Overwatch 2 came out, and I decided against that very quickly, when Soj rose up to power and it started becoming very clear that one-shots were not as healthy in this system anymore. But, the Season 9 patch aimed to eliminate some of that, those elims, the one-shots, but Widow somehow got away basically scot-free. So I wanted to, it's because of her size buff, right? Like the projectile size. So she's not only more frustrating, she's the only one in the cast who can still one-shot. It's really, really frustrating. Real quick, if you guys end up liking this video, if you wouldn't mind just giving me like a like, follow, comment, whatever. Anything helps me out. I really do appreciate it. If you want to see more, you can go check out my socials or check out the videos on my other channels. I'll get out of your hair, but thank you so much for your support. Appreciate it. So what is Widow's deal? What does this character even do? You just get to see the gun. That's what she does. She has gun. She has a sniper rifle. What she actually does is she holds space from a distance, right? You walk into Widow's sightlines, that means you're dead, and it's your fault. Why did you peek, dummy? You knew she was there. She has some ways to escape, but Widow's kit is very simple, and her defensive options are very long cooldowns, and even so, like, Venom Mine only prevents like flankers, if you're getting ran at by a brawl, like you're kind of cooked if you don't have grapple. Jump shots are fun, but Venom Mine definitely needs some differences, right? Like Grapple's got some good things to it, but I think Venom Mine is pretty much kind of bad. But basically, like, most of her character comes down to scoping in and shooting, and then once they know you're there, you go to a new place and you scope in and you shoot, and you don't even like think about your abilities. I have to be so real, when I play Widowmaker, I forget about Venom Mine because it's just such a uninteresting and uninteractive ability. She is gun. That is her character. She is sniper rifle. So what is the main problem with this? Obviously, it's the one shot. The rest of her abilities don't do anything, so her power needs to be in her weapon. So you can't just like take Widow on live and decrease her damage. Otherwise, she becomes Hanzo and is like basically unusable. The real problem with her one shot is that there's just no setup required, right? There's a little bit of a charge, but she gets it instantly, and she doesn't even have to charge it all the way to get the one shot most of the time. So she can just like peek around a corner and then boom, you're dead. There's nothing she has to set up. All she has to have is a good sight line, and that's it. She can kill you. So yeah, other characters, they're one shots. They're tied to ultimates. So you have to build charge. You have to set up your abilities and get like a combo of them. But Widow just gets to shoot you, and that's it. And of course, it's hit scan, so the aim skill at longer ranges is not that hard, right? It's like a regular hit scan. It's not like a projectile you have to think about where they're moving and all of that. There's a lot less of that. And of course, the projectile size made it really easy for Widow to hit heads relative to the rest of the cast. And as Overwatch has progressed, the risk of playing this character has basically gone away, right? So, in my redesign, I want to keep Widow's identity as a character that holds space, but limit how often she can do it and make it a little more obvious when the threat is at its highest, right? Widow sneaking up on you and just taking your head off is like, okay, well, how do I even counterplay that? Additionally, and perhaps controversially, even just to what I just said, I think the identity of this character does in fact revolve around the one shot, and that factor or one shots should somehow be a part of her kit. But very big but here, she must work for it, and like way more than she currently does. She needs to use abilities. She needs to have limited windows of being able to do the damage, right? So let's go ahead and we'll start with her regular modes of fire. So the submachine gun can say it's silly, it's dumb. Oh, I forgot to move my camera. The submachine gun can say it's silly, it's dumb. Who cares, right? It's whatever. If somebody dives her, that's kind of bad. Like if she's at the point where she has to use a submachine gun, she's already lost, and that's part of the character, and I think that's fine. What I would do for her gun is I would decrease the charge rate just a little bit, slow her rate of fire, so that if multiple people are in the site, she can't just like keep popping and popping. And I do like the charge idea, like having some time and you get a little bit of nuance about when do I fire the gun. That's good, and I think we should keep that for Widow. I would also bring her range in, probably closer to Ash's. Now, I don't want to make Widow just Ash 2.0, so maybe we'll find a good healthy middle ground. But right now, her range, even after the nerfs and also like the buff recently, still too far. Like she still can do a lot of damage close to you. And the big thing, of course, get rid of her one shot regularly. So her 2.5 damage multiplier to headshots is just going to become 1.5. I believe this would make her do like 180 fully charged, somewhere like that. I didn't really do the math. But basically, I want Widow's effectiveness to be reduced without her abilities. But, 180 damage, it's still kind of scary. It's a big chunk of your damage pool or your health pool gone. So it's still like she can hold space without using abilities if she needs to, right? But, I know it sounds like she's going to be a terrible character with these changes, but let's go ahead and move on. So we'll talk about Venom Mine. Venom Mine is where a lot of changes to her core gameplay are going to be. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the effect that it actually does, which just gives you like damage over time and you can see through the wall where they are, right? What it actually does now is it creates a tiny, probably like, the width of like 2 or 3 people and like the height of like one person, right? Smoke cloud, like a venom cloud. And it's opaque, and it does a little bit of damage over time while you're standing in it. And that's like the big thing, right? You have to be in the cloud to receive that damage. I'm going to go ahead and give it 2 charges because I want Widow to have a little bit more space control, and it'll be activatable by Widow. So you can still shoot it and get rid of it, but it's not like it trips automatically. She gets a little more control about when the Venom Mine is up. It'll be active for a couple seconds. The big thing about this is that when the enemy is standing in the mine cloud, they will receive double damage or more damage. Basically, they can get one shot if they're a regular squishy health character, but they have to be standing in the Venom Mine or in the cloud, right? You could also throw it at your feet as like an escape tool or like to or obstruct where you are. But you may realize something in that this cloud is opaque, right? How the fuck is she going to be able to shoot you through it? Well, I'm glad you asked. She now has a new, I'm calling it like a passive active ability because I don't know if they would like bind these separately. She has two scopes now, two extra scopes rather. Thermal and long range. So you would use the scroll wheel to swap between the scopes, and they'll use them for a couple seconds before going on like a moderately long cooldown. Each scope has its own cooldown, so you'll be able to swap between like, oh, I want to go to the thermal scope and I'll use that for a couple seconds, and then I'll go to the long range scope and I'll use that for a couple seconds, and then the other scope won't be up quite yet if you do it back to back, but they're on their own separate ones. You can kind of rotate them how you choose, right? Basically what I want, and of course I should explain what they are. They're pretty self-explanatory. Thermoscope allows you to see through the Venom cloud, not through walls. This is not Infrasight. Infrasight is gone. She doesn't have anything like that. It allows you to see specifically through the Venom cloud and then like maybe a little more clearly through some of the foggier effects, the hazier ones like Annihilation or whatever. But mainly it's for you can see through the Venom cloud. So even if people cross through the Venom cloud while Widow is looking at it, she's not going to be able to see them unless she has her thermal scope. And you can kind of I would think probably add some audio cues for the enemy to hear when her scopes have swapped so that you can risk going into the Venom cloud if you think she doesn't have thermal scope, right? And you still take a little bit of damage, sure, but it gives the enemy more active playmaking potential to cross Widow sight lines if she's watching, right? If she has this map control. But I wanted Widow to like actively manage resources, Venom Mine, scopes, charge. She's doing a lot more during the fight, and it's going to increase her skill ceiling a lot. I think this resource management while you're trying to aim and do all this stuff, that's a lot, And in order to set up your one-shots, you need to have like your mine and you need to have your scope and all of that good stuff. Like I think it adds a lot more of management of time and positioning to Widow. And I think that's really the key here, is that she can't always shoot you. She can't always be effective. She has like peaks and valleys of her effectiveness, not just, oh, she's in the fight because she's rotating to a new angle that you don't know where she's going, or she's just holding one choke, right? Now she's got like, oh, like Widow doesn't have a Venom Mine set up, so maybe I can walk. Maybe I'll just try not to get hit by her 180 shot, right? That's kind of what I'm going for here. And of course, I like Grapple. I think Grapple is fun. So we'll take a couple changes to Grapple too, just again to make Widow more fun and engaging. Now you can, when you grapple to ceilings or walls, you can choose to stay there for a couple seconds. Otherwise, you just cancel the ability and she'll fall, right? Or she'll keep flying, however her momentum works. This is for you to be able to find unique angles, so you're not just holding the same things. You can go make a play and be somewhere that you have no idea where they're going to be, right? For a short amount of time, because again, you're only there for a couple seconds. And you potentially put yourself at risk if you go too aggressive and then you fall to the floor with no resources. You could use it for escaping, for hiding as well. I think that's also like a really good use for it. If you're getting somebody like close range is shooting you and you just grapple up to the ceiling and now you're shooting them still, it'd be kind of silly and weird. I have it on 2 charges. I'll talk about an alternate for that later. But this is so that you can get a little more aggressive, and since you can't one-shot with it, regularly, then I think she's allowed to have a little bit more room with Grapple. But I wanted to keep that element of surprise, but, it's not oppressive anymore. And she would have to set up this crazy like ability, like, oh, I knew you were going to be there, so I Venom Mined, and I used my scope, and I used my grapple, and you had no idea it was there. Like, that's a crazy amount of resources you have to get all timed up properly and still potentially not even hit your shot. And, now you've wasted everything, and then you're at the super valley of your effectiveness, right? So that's why I think Widow, since so much of her pressure and effectiveness has been taken out of her primary, again, we can put it into her abilities to make her more active, to make her more fun, and still not be as oppressive. And that's really what I'm kind of thinking here. You know how like the PvE snipers, they like swap high grounds really effectively? That's what I'm thinking for Widow. It's like, okay, now I know where the sniper is. I have to play around it, but we can still kind of get to her. She's closer to me, so now it's easier for us to pressure her away. Stuff like that. I realized I didn't really talk about the long range scope here. The long range scope, it just actually increases her effective range. Like, it'll push her damage fall off further, but only if you're in the long range scope. And you cannot use the thermal scope at the same time. So you're really just you're really just going for like longer range damage than you normally would in case somebody peeked out further. That's kind of the idea with the thermal scope or the long range scope. It's the lesser of the two, really. So going on to her ult, I have to be so real with you. I had a lot of problems or trouble coming up with an ult that felt impactful for her, because I don't like Infrasight. It's so boring. It's just 15 seconds of her doing whatever she like, just waiting and waiting, and I hate Infrasight. So what I came up with, I think is okay. I think this could be interesting still. I'm gonna call them poison rounds. Basically, Widow reloads her clip, and then in this clip, well, how many shots you get on Widow? Like 6 or 7 charged ones. When you shoot and that shot makes contact with anything, it will emit one of the poison clouds, right? Like a Venom Mine, right? Wherever the point of contact was. So if it collides with a barrier, it'll be there. If it collides with a wall, it'll be wherever that was. If it collides with somebody, it will stay where it collided with them, right? It's just a smoke cloud in wherever. I went back and forth about whether it should one-shot, because technically you would be in the smoke if you got shot by it. I decided that if you get shot in the head with a poison round, then you're at the epicenter of a poison cloud, so you're going to take damage over time trying to get out of it. So I feel like that's nearly a one-shot anyways, so I'll just leave it like this for now. Basically what this does is it gives Widow super space control, but it's much more active. She gets to choose where it goes and what she controls, right? So she doesn't just get the whole map for free. She has to play a little smarter with it, and make decisions about like, oh, do I even try to shoot people with a regular gun while I'm doing this? Or should I just set up a bunch of poison clouds where they may be like cart or on her, like you could save an ally just by throwing a poison cloud on somebody that they're dueling, right? That's kind of what I'm going for. And it, of course, Widow can control the space from further away. You could also combine it with her grapple movements and like shoot where you're going to grapple, and now you're in this like smoke cloud up in the ceiling and no one can see you. And then you can use your thermal to see them through it or stuff like that. Some crazy stuff you could potentially do with this ult. Basically, I wanted to give Widow an ult that gave her skill expression, but also still had a decent, like a little bit of counterplay from the enemy, because it's just like, it's poison clouds, right? Like you have to deal with that anyways in the neutral. Now you just have to deal with a couple more, right? I kind of think of this ult as like Torb Molten Core, but a little more active, But yeah, that's poison rounds. That's what I'm thinking with this one. So that's the rework, right? So basically, it's space is priority, right? We want to have space, and the one shot is much more conditional, right? And it's timing based and it's position based, and it's not nearly as oppressive. She doesn't just get the full map for free. She has to pick and choose when and where she uses things, and I think that's much more engaging. I was talking about a couple of problems. She she could be fucking awful. Like, not being like, the amount of resources it takes to set up a one shot is insane, and the fact that it requires people to be in the cloud for it to work, and she needs to be able to see them. It's so hard, right? It could be so hard to actually get value out of this character. So she may just like never be a viable pick, which would need some balance tweaking, but just based on like a fundamental level, she may just be too hard to get value out of, which is something that's concerning. I would also consider Grapple just being on a lower cooldown instead of storing 2, because Widow may be undiveable with 2 on a cooldown, so I do get that. I just wanted her to be like have a little more fun with what she can do, and I didn't want her to go for aggressive grapples and then just be like she flops to the floor and then she just dies because she missed her shot or whatever. But I'm definitely down to just make it a lower cooldown. Wall stick may be really annoying. You may never know where she is. If a Widow is good, they may just be able to one-shot you from wherever. I'm definitely okay with removing it if that is too much of an issue. Going for jump shots is very fun still. If you had 2 choices to do it, I still think that would be perfectly fine. She could like Tarzan her way up in the sky and go for, there's still a lot you could do. I'm totally fine with getting rid of the wall stick. This is the biggest concern I have. Venom Cloud provides a lot of visual clutter. And that is a problem, right? It's like a smoke in Valorant or CS, right? And Overwatch is not built to have smokes in it. So potentially it could be a little more like translucent, or like even work like, how in water you look at it and it looks like there's some place but they're actually like a little off center because of how the way the light refracts. I think that would be a cool idea to have it like you don't actually know specifically where they are in the cloud. I wanted Widow not to even know they're in the cloud. Well, I guess she would be getting damage from the damage over time. So yeah, maybe something like that could fix that problem. Or it could just be like super like, I don't know. But it with the scopes and everything, it does need to have some kind of visual obstruction, which is, potentially bad. And especially with the ult, which is why that was my main concern with this ult. It's just like, okay, let me fill the screen with shit. And like, that's the ult. And I think that could be a problem. Again, I talked about this earlier. The ult could potentially one-shot, but I think that's like a desperation, oh, she sucks. So let's make the ult do a little more. And of course, I think this may be too many resources to manage. It's like multiple Venom Mines, multiple grapples, multiple scopes. And you have to activate the mines, and you have to keep track of your charge. Like, it may be too much. And I think that's fine. I'm okay with getting rid of one of the Venom Mine uses. I'm okay with getting one of the grapples. Honestly, I'm not even attached to the long range scope that much. I just thought it would be a little more interesting to get multiple of them. But yeah, those are like most of the problems. I think these are the most problems I've been able to come up with because, again, this is just a sniper character, and sniper characters are hard to work with in this game. Either they have to be really simple, like Hanzo and Ashe, and not be as effective, or if you make them overly complicated like this, which I don't think it's overly complicated overall, but it's just a lot of things to go through. It may be too much to manage at one time. But yeah, again, Widow right now, she needs changes. She needs something. If they just take away some of her damage, so be it, right? I'm going to be a happy camper if she just can't one-shot anymore. But if we really want this character to function like more, with more nuance in Overwatch 2, I think she needs a sweeping lot of changes, basically, because her kit is incredibly outdated. It is incredibly simplistic, and it has like no thought behind how the things interact, basically. But yeah, that's it. That's my Widow rework discussion. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to chat in just a second here, but if you made it this far, please consider subscribing, to the YouTube channel, leaving a comment, like all that good YouTube stuff. It really does help me out. If you want to see this live, I've been doing a rework discussion every weekend on Saturday evenings. That's twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. You can participate if you'd like. But yeah, that's it. I do really appreciate the support, and let's go ahead and see if we've got anything from the chat.